Fala galera, bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite. Sejam bem-vindos a mais um Sonoridades. Hoje, o papo é com o Steve Hackett, o lendário guitarrista do Genesis, que passou aqui pelo Brasil com o Genética apresentando o icônico Seconds Out, um dos melhores discos ao vivo de toda a história. Ele conta muita coisa desse disco, conta do Selling England by the Pound, que comemorou 50 anos recentemente, entre outras curiosidades. Confere, curta, compartilhe. Já!
With the needle's eyes winking and closing on the poor and carpet crawlers, heed their callers. We've got to get in to get out. We got to get in to get out.
For this concert here in Brazil, you're gonna play with Genetics.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So, how are your expectations for these couple of concerts, and what will you can spoil of the set list?
Well, actually, yeah, it's 3 concerts. It's Rio, Niterói, São Paulo, 18th, 19th, and 20th, in that order. And what we're going to be playing is the Genesis album Seconds Out. It's a live album which cherry picks across many of the Genesis albums from the 1970s, because Genetics, as you can see, the name bears some resemblance to Genesis. I've worked with them once or twice before, and they're very good. And there will be some solo things as well, but it's quite a long album, you understand. It's a double album, Seconds Out. So I'm really happy to be doing that. It'd be great to be coming back to Brazil.
Yeah, and it's gonna be a presentation almost for 50 years of this concert here in Brazil in 1997.
Well, that's absolutely true. Yeah, the first thing I did, it was 1977, because I came down to Brazil and I realized they were playing us on the radio, Genesis. And at that time, what was happening was there was only one band, maybe once every 2 years in Brazil. So it was very rare. I think Stevie Wonder might have done something, and Rick Wakeman did something, and then it's like 2 years go by, and the next thing is Genesis at that time, when we were all very young guys, of course.
Yeah. And what do you remember about this concert on 77?
Well, I remember that we were playing 2 shows a night. We were playing in, I think it was Maracanãzinho in Rio, and something comparable in São Paulo, and I think it was Recife and Porto Alegre, actually. And in the main, we were doing 2 shows a night, and it all seemed like it was sold out, and people liked it, and so it was it was a big deal, if you're only getting one band once every 2 years. So it was like, where are we going to go for the night? Okay, we'll go and see those guys. So I have happy memories of all of that. Thank you.
Yeah. And you released commemoration about this concert last year with your band like um, Ned Sylvan, Craig Blundell. So
Yes.
of this concert.
Yeah, well, that came out. We toured with that lineup at that point, and I'm touring with that in the rest of the world. But it's post-pandemic. There have been a lot of pressures, and the reality is that, of course, the cost of freighting everything has gone up to such a large degree. I mean, I have this conversation with my friend Steve Rothery of Marillion, where he says when he's in South America, he works with a South American band. The last time I worked with my band, when we went very far afield, was to fulfill some obligations in Australia and Japan. And of course, you can't make that work economically. It's just in a post-pandemic world. The reality is that I arrive with a minimum of personal equipment, and I work with. I know that for you guys in Brazil, of course, Argentina is not local, but for my side of the world, we think of, yes, Argentina and Brazil as the same sort of area. If we describe it all as South America, I don't want to insult any Brazilians or Argentinians by saying this, because I know there's a rivalry between the two. But let's face it, you guys are getting on better than the Russians and the Ukrainians. So long may peace reign.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on this matter. Let's have just put some peace.
Yeah, it's just, occasionally there'll be a football match and it'll go a bit tribal, but as long as nobody dies. And the nice thing about music is most of the time nobody dies. That's it. If somebody plays a wrong note, nobody dies. That's what we always say to ourselves. And I think music is a great ambassador for peace. So I'm leading a very busy life, doing lots of concerts. I've been all over Europe recently, and it's the last few years have been the busiest time of my life. So no chance of retirement, lots of stuff to come, and I'm still making a noise for a living and loving doing it. And I love working in front of live audiences who like this classic Genesis stuff, or the stuff of my own, which is also well known in certain territories. So I'm still making albums. I'm still contemporary. I'm not entirely archival, but the Genesis stuff, of course, is more well known than sliced bread. So I'm very happy to be doing that. I sweated blood to write those songs back in the day. I worked really, really hard to build Genesis and to build a following with Genesis. So I'm very happy to do that. I don't feel it's a I don't feel it's a compromise. I think it's an honor to do it.
Yeah, and we are honored to see it live also.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, it seems to be that there's an expectation, and it seems to be selling very well. So this is great, of course, for music which is of a certain vintage, shall we say.
Yeah, and on this year 2023 marks
Yep.
the 50 years of Selling England by the Pound, which I know is your
Yes.
favorite album from your era on Genesis.
Yeah, I've in recent years I've been playing the whole of Foxtrot, the whole of Seconds Out, the whole of Selling England by the Pound. These are the whole albums that I've done absolutely back to back. And of course, because of COVID and because of catch up, I was playing some shows that have been delayed for 3 years. Um, it was just the reality. So sometimes these centenary things don't always fall quite as neatly as we would like them to be. So we're doing Seconds Out. as I say, because I think that it cherry picks across the best of Genesis, best of classic Genesis at that time. Certain songs like Carpet Crawlers and Los Endos and Dance on a Volcano. This kind of material, it never really goes away. A little bit of Lamb Lies Down on Broadway in there. So it's kind of right across the board, and a little bit of musical box is in there as well. So yeah, I think it's a very good album, and it's from a time when I think the band was still very very creative and still hadn't fallen prey to the temptation of making endless hit singles, which I think robbed the original fans of the reason why they came to see Genesis. So I think that the more streamlined and the more how can I say, the more commercial the band became, something was gained, of course, but there was a lot that was lost. The music that engaged musicians, the music that engaged people throughout the world in certain places. And as I say, Genesis was receiving a lot of airplay in Brazil even before we came. I think the year was at the end of '74. I was in Brazil for the first time, Christmas that year, and I couldn't help but notice that the band was being played as if we were a local band. It was very well known. So I realized when I went back to the UK, I said to the guys and to the management, I said, we're getting a lot of play there. It's worth checking this out, and maybe we can do something there. Which was a dream come true, really. It was, if I hadn't gone there and been a spy, it perhaps wouldn't have happened in that way.
Why don't you touch me, why don't you touch me, now, 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 now.
And you said that Genesis was airplay like a local band, but I don't know if you know that, but Carpet Crawlers play like every day on Brazilian radio. So
Really?
yeah.
Yeah, that's funny that, because I think that from Lamb Lies Down on Broadway was not an album that had hit singles on it. Ironically, Selling England by the Pound had one hit single, which was I Know What I Like. Yeah. Funny that, isn't it? The album before had that, but Lamb Lies Down on Broadway was a long concept album, and I don't think there were too many compromises made towards commerciality. But that was then, and I think Seconds Out has the balance of a lot of really good stuff. Afterglow, Robbery, Assault and Battery. I'm trying to remember all the tunes off the top of my head, but I certainly look forward to doing it.
Yeah, and but we're already talking about the timeless of Genesis, because nowadays Genesis is getting more and more big here in Brazil. A lot of young people are knowing the work of Genesis.
Yeah, it's funny because the music goes on even though the band has officially retired now. Of course, there's the reasons for that. It's that Phil Collins is not a well guy, and he may not return to live concerts, or he may decide to do that. A lot of people say they're going to retire and that's it, like Elton John, and of course it might be like Frank Sinatra, where it's like he's retired and then there's another tour and then there's another one after that and another one. But I think in Phil's case, it's justified, and he's worked very very hard at pleasing a lot of people, done a lot of shows, and he's a veteran. Even since he was a kid, he was in showbiz, he was acting in movies, he was on stage in the musical Oliver by Lionel Bart, all before Genesis came along for him. So I think what survives is the music, and so I think to some degree the team has to be interchangeable. If some people call it the classical music of the future, let's put it this way: if we don't expect Beethoven to play Beethoven, we accept that the Royal Philharmonic might play Beethoven, or you know, Von Karajan can play Beethoven, but Beethoven, unfortunately, has left the building many years earlier. So the music is what survives. And music, I think the subtext of music is to re-energize people, to heal. It's very good medicine. And the subtext is all of that, and the message of peace in a vastly decoupling world. It's a very troubled planet right now. You can deny all sorts of things, but you've only got to watch the news for 5 minutes and realize what a dangerous point we're at. So I'm very happy if I can get people singing the same song, or even remembering the same song. I invite them to sing along. Anything they know, fine. Even the guitar solos, sometimes people sing along. Fine. I'm very, very happy. It's not precious where you have to sit there, like, have to be really silent and concentrate on it. Now, I would think that when I'm playing in front of people that know this stuff from way back, or even if they've just encountered it, by now we're all in the same band. That's it. The audience, the band, there is no separation. So it's a big invitation to lovers of music everywhere.
Yeah. And you started your career in a time where we have vinyl, and nowadays
Yes,
we have artificial intelligence making music.
yes,
So how do you
yes.
see this modern age of music?
Well, I think that there has been artificial intelligence for quite some time. You only got to listen to modern music, and you can see that, you know, you can tell what's been programmed, and music without musicians. And I understand that in order to have a hit record these days, perhaps all you need, cynically speaking, is an engineer or a programmer who is the producer and a singer, and that's all you need to have a modern dance hit. But you know, as well as artificial intelligence, there is artificial ignorance, and if people are ignorant of what real music can do, and real musicians, and all of that, people that have trained their whole lives with the nuancing of the way that they play and sing and write and all of that. I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be, we're having robots, yes, that can do certain things. Whether we've yet to arrive at the point where we've got a genius robot, I don't know. That may be a very dangerous point to arrive to. But until then, I'm happy to be a humble human being.
Yeah. And another thing that we have nowadays is the return of the cassette tapes. I don't know if you,
Yes.
how do you see this?
Well, I can see that you know, everything has its fashion, and you think that something has had its day, but it tends to come back, like stack heels, or long hair or makeup, or everyone shaving their heads off. I mean, you know, most guys I see in the street. My wife says this. She says they all look like they were from Nazi Germany in the 1930s. You know, you wouldn't have thought that haircut would have come back, but you know, it's just fashion, really, and it doesn't really matter. It goes round in circles. Things always come back. I mean, you know, we were happy when vinyl went, so that records didn't scratch and jump, and all of that. And we were happy when cassettes went, so that you didn't have to use a pencil to rewind it when it went. But I think someone who's not familiar with that, it's a bit like women wearing stockings with ladders in. You know, it's part of the way it is. So those things, that the fragility of the medium is never going to go away. And personally, I like to listen to CDs. That's me. I'm a CD kind of guy, because when I started doing acoustic music, very often there were silences, and I didn't like to hear distortion between that and scratches. I didn't want to be aware of the medium. But I understand a lot of people love vinyl because it's big, and so you get a bigger thing for your money, and you get extra compression and distortion with it. So it gives it a certain power, and it can be very good for pop. It can be very good for rock. Not always great for progressive stuff or jazz or classical, where you have these moments where you can hear a pin drop, and that's what you want to be able to do instead of hearing a piece of metal being scratched around a groove. And the problem, of course, with cassettes many years ago was I was always taking things to record companies, and they were always saying, "Hey, it sounds really dull." So then you go, "Yeah, that's because the Dolby, this, that, and the other." You know, so you switch the Dolby in, and then something else happens. It's either too bright, or it's either too tizzy, or it's too dull. And people were always assessing mixes on these mediums where you couldn't really win. And I was so happy when CDs came along. I was signed to Epic Records at the time, and Michael Jackson had just brought out the first CD, or so it seemed. And the record had the boss of that was a guy called Don Dempsey. He said, "Look at this, it's indestructible." And he threw it across the room, and I thought, I hope it is indestructible. But I realized that people are saying, "Oh, well, you know, CDs are passe, etc." And then we'll wait a few years and people will be going, "He was right. CDs, we should have kept those all along because they don't break, or they don't this, you know, you don't have to rewind them, they don't scratch in the grooves." But you know, I release on just about every format that's available. I wouldn't say to anyone who's a vinyl fetishist, you shouldn't do that. You got to go with what pleases everybody.
And what can you spoil about your solo project? I mean, you released not a long much time an album,
Sure.
so I work on a new album. What can you say?
Oh yes, yeah. I'm working on a new album. I'm very in love with it. It's very good, and I can't wait to finish it. The trouble is, I'm doing so many shows, it's very difficult to get into the studio at the same time. So what I'm doing is, at some shows, we're recording some things live, actually using the hall. So it gives it a different sound, and it's a cross between live and it's a cross between studio. So you get the mixture of the two. And I have to say that it gives it a different kind of flavor. You know, for people who love the sound of live, the sound of a live hall, and I know I do, you know, it's great to be able to work that way with the band that I work with most of the time, who are very flexible, and they're very, very good. You know, the band that has Nad Sylvan, as you mentioned, and Jonas Reingold, Craig Blundell, Rob Townsend, Roger King. That's the regular band. But you know, I'm looking forward to coming with Genetics. They're also very, very good, great guys. I did some stuff with them once before in Argentina, and also in Peru. So, you know, looking forward to bringing that. You know, I've been spoiled for choice in recent years. I've worked with some great musicians, and they're really, really wonderful. I owe a lot to the musicians that I've worked with right throughout the course of my long career.
To see reflected there, trees, the sky, the lily fair, the scene of death is lying just below. The mountain cuts off the town from view, like a cancer growth is removed by skill. Let it be revealed.
And when I was researching about what to ask you, I saw that a lot of great iconic guitar players always said about your relevance for the style of playing. So what's the secret of Steve Hackett's playing?
Well, there was this technique of tapping that in 1971 I was doing it on electric guitar, and a lot of people picked up on it. And so you had Eddie Van Halen and Alex Lifeson and a lot of other people who said that it was an influence on them. And of course, I get influenced by them in turn. So guitarists all influence each other. As soon as somebody does something that that is worth sticking in the glossary of terms, immediately we pick up on it. Like drummers, I've noticed that drummers have these techniques for hitting the drums harder now, and this recoil technique that, of course, we didn't have that at one time. But once one guy picks it up, I've worked with Marco Minimum, very, very loud, Craig Blundell, very, very loud drums. And these techniques, yeah, they're once it's out there for good, because social media means that everybody talks in some way. The bush wire is always working. It's always burning, really.
Yeah. And Steve, I have
Yeah.
more two questions for you, okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Fine. Yeah.
So what's your future projects? I know you're recording an album, as you said. You have a lot of concerts, as you said, but you still have another project on your radar?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I have two passions musically, both of which involve working with orchestras. One is electric music, but one is acoustic music. And acoustic music was something I was doing with Genesis way back in the day. On Foxtrot, there was one piece that was entirely acoustic guitar that I played, and I didn't expect that the band would like it, but they did, and fans liked it. So it spawned several albums of acoustic stuff, and that's the stuff that there is no tyranny of volume. You're not hitting people over the head with a sledgehammer. A rock band goes out there, heavy metal, whatever it is, you've got volume. One chord on an electric guitar, bam, and the walls fall down. But with acoustic guitar, you have to put in the time. You have to love it. It has to seduce you, and then if you're lucky, you. And there's a quote from Segovia, which is a great one. It's about the artist so loves his own music that, the artist rather so loves his own work that he compels others to love it also. So you have to love it to that degree, I think, acoustic guitar to do it well. So I've done albums of that stuff, recorded Bach and all this kind of stuff, and I love it because it's like different gods paying homage to one. Who is the god of the electric guitar? Is it Jimi Hendrix? Is the god of the guitar Andres Segovia? They are universes apart, but they both made a noise for a living. That's what binds them, and the effect of that music is eternal upon all of us.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that.
What would my older self say to my
Yeah,
younger self?
yeah,
Um, I would say the same thing that I would say to any young player, because you can't do it all at once. And to realize that you're doing it primarily for yourself to start off with. So you can get a lot of joy if you can only play three chords on a guitar. You're already up and running and you're making music. But I think the main thing is to love it. And if you do, there's a very good chance that music may be very kind to you. And don't give up as well, because I think that the only person who can really fail you is yourself. If someone else criticizes you, they can't stop you from carrying on. So it's so important to do it and enjoy it, and things will come. If you love it and you enjoy it, music will surprise you. It will keep presenting new things to you, and there's so many ways you can go. You can have a guitar teacher. You can learn out of a book. You can be self-taught, as I was. But there's no right or wrong way of doing it. The only qualification is to love it and to keep doing it. So I would have said that to my young self. And at times of trouble and despair, and we all go through that, there were times when, as a younger player, I couldn't touch my guitar because I thought, oh, it's a wrestling match and it's going to win and I'm not going to. But I don't have that today. I pick it up just for the joy of it, just not to compete, but because it's alive, and there's something about it. I don't know what it is. It might be destiny, it might be hubris, it's certainly enthusiasm. It doesn't go away, and so I play it every day. If I've got a guitar in hand, I play it every day.
Okay. Steve, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
There is lamb's wool under my naked feet. The wool is soft and warm. It gives off some kind of heat. A salamander scurries into flame to be destroyed. Imaginary creatures are trapped in birth on celluloid. The fleas cling to the golden fleece, hoping they'll find peace. Each thought and gesture are caught in celluloid. There's no hiding in memory. There's no room to avoid. The crawlers cover the floor in the red ochre corridor. For my second sight of people, they've more lifeblood than before. They're moving in time to a heavy wooden door, where the needle's eye is winking and closing on the poor. The carpet crawlers heed their callers. We gotta get in to get out. We gotta get in to get out. We gotta get in to get out. There's only one direction in the faces that I see, and it's upward to the ceiling. It's where the chamber We've gotta get in to get out. We gotta get in to get out. We gotta get in to get out.
Thank you very much.